What's up, everybody? Jeff Moores here with Think International, helping leaders and creatives go further, faster, with greater impact. Today, in collaboration with Sticky Teams Conference, we interviewed Jud Wilhite, pastor of Central Church, a church of 20,000 across 10 different locations. And in this video, we talk how to break through cynicism and how to bust through leadership lids, as well as his new book, Uncaged. Check it out. Hey, we're here with Jud Wilhite, pastor of Central Church in Las Vegas, 20,000 people, 10 different locations. You just got done teaching at the North Coast Conference, Sticky Teams. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. It's an amazing conference. Sticky Teams was really fantastic. A lot of laughter, but also some really great nuggets. So I learned some good things, and I'm taking some things home with me.
I love it. Every year it's just it's inspiring but instructional. Like, you always leave with a lot of good practical stuff.
Yeah, it's really good.
And your sessions were phenomenal. And I just want to hit upon, like, you've seen this church grow, and you've seen the different levels of complexity and so on and so forth. What's it like leading at different levels, and how do you grow your leadership and like that?
I think, there's U2 sings that song, Get Out of Your Own Way, and I think that's one of the greatest challenges of a leader when it comes to lids. You have to get out of your own way, and you have to have, and I didn't know, I think back through the years, over 15 years now, wow. I didn't always see when I was the lid until I had been the lid for a while.
Okay.
Right? And then it sort of dawns on me, like, I'm in the way. Like, wow. I got to get out of my own way here. And so, we reorganize or restructure or step out of the way. And once I was then kind of out of the way, for instance, like at certain levels, there are things that you can do well enough. You may not be great at them, but you can do them well enough. Yeah. But to go to the next level, there's a place where that becomes a lid. So either you keep doing it, administration, strategy, whatever, which is all important, or you realize there are other people who can do this better. I just have to ensure it gets done, and it gets done well. That's my role.
Sure.
But I have to get out of my own way, in my case, bring in and partner with people who have great strategic minds and great implementation minds and great systems minds, and learn from them together, and collectively, we get out of our way and the lid rises. Otherwise, everything's gonna be reduced to my own level of kind of giftedness when it comes to those areas.
So you're saying then, as the leader, even though like you may actually be the lid, but if you can get the other people to bust that lid open, that's all that really matters.
That's right. Yeah. When I say you're being the lid, it's just that you're staying in the way. You can lead through your own personal lids with the help of a team, because it becomes about the team. Right?
So with pastors being, honestly, we're some of the most insecure, people-pleasing people on the planet. How do you gain that security then to get those people around you?
So here's the question, do you want to grow? Do you want to win?
There you go.
And if you want to win bad enough, then you stop caring about who threw the touchdown pass.
Yeah.
What I care about is we scored a touchdown.
Exactly.
Like we're winning. So maybe it's selfishness in there mixed in, or just like enough competitiveness that like you don't want to lose.
Right.
But however you define success from a ministry standpoint, I think once you sort of step back and realize, look, if our organization is winning, however that gets defined,
facts,
then as the senior pastor, I'm winning.
Yep. Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter if I did it, if I threw the pass, if I caught the ball, I get the credit because I'm the senior pastor, and then my job is to give the credit away to everybody else who did the amazing job. I get the credit anyway. I don't have to, I can drop that insecurity and just kind of focus on letting everybody know the people that really played the part in getting it done, and the people that are really doing an amazing job down in the trenches. And I've just found that the more comfortable, even now with our board, I've sat with our board's been like, man, this was an amazing year. And these are kind of my bosses, spiritually and in other ways, and they're going through all this. And it would have been easy to just sit there and be like, I did all, and I'm like, frankly, guys, I didn't have anything to do with that. That was the leadership of this person and the leadership of this person. And what I've found over the years is that can be very threatening. Like, oh, you can't say that.
Right.
But first of all, it's not that much of a secret anyway, because people realize my strengths and weaknesses pretty quick. But then secondly, I found that great leaders respect that even more. They know exactly what you're doing.
Right.
And it hasn't lessened. If anything, it gave me more chips, not less.
For sure. Do you feel like you wish you would have known that younger?
Yeah, I mean, it's an important, I think to the degree that you feel that insecurity and feel like you have to do it and you have to, and there is probably a degree where you have to go out in the ring and you have to kind of take your shots and you have to get your reps. But then you get a few knockouts, you get knocked out a few times, right? And then you start realizing like, I don't have to prove anything anymore. We just need to win according to the Great Commission and the Great Commandment, according to how we define winning as a church. So.
That's awesome. Now, over the years, you've been in ministry for how long now?
25.
25 years. And I'm sure that throughout those 25 years, you've definitely had some times where you weren't incredibly in love with the ministry and incredibly in love with the church. How have you overcome the cynicism, becoming cynical with the church and with the ministry and with people?
Well, I can remember years ago being with a group of pastors and leaders, and I remember leaving, and I was so disturbed because they were so cynical. Like truly, I spent a weekend listening to them just talking about other people, other churches, other ministries. Like the cynicism was so deep. And these are, at the time, this was a lifetime ago, but these were pretty big players, in the church world back in the day. And I went back home and I said to my wife, like, I'm never going to hang out with these people again.
Wow.
Because they're cynical, and I don't want to become that.
Yeah.
And we began to actually ask years ago, who do we want to be like? And in ministry, and whose kids do we want our kids to be like?
Wow. And
once we started doing that, it led us pretty quickly to positive, life-giving, affirming people who believed in the church, even though some of them had been through more than you can imagine, right?
Yeah.
But they just choose to land on their feet and believe in the church and God and what He's doing, even though it's messy. And so being strategic about our friends from an influence standpoint was huge. That whole saying that we preach, you become the collection of your top 5 friends.
Yeah,
so,
very true.
When my friends got cynical, I got new friends.
Really?
I mean, I didn't drop them, but I just didn't go hang out with them, and slowly we all drifted apart. Most of them aren't even in ministry anymore.
Wow.
But I'm still here.
You're still here because of the people that you keep company with. That's huge. That's absolutely huge.
Because it's easy to get cynical.
Cynical, for sure.
To me, that's a little bit lazy. Being cynical is not hard.
Right.
It's not like, oh, wow, you're cynical. Who isn't?
Yeah, how did you learn that? Yeah.
It's like, but being not naive, right? But being aware and working through your cynicism with an awareness and getting to the other side of it and being able to still say positive, that to me is maturity, real spiritual maturity.
That's great.
But it's not easy to get there.
No, not at all.
And I've gone through my cynical moments.
Oh, I'm sure. It's almost like cynicism is like one of the first major steps to burnout because your attitude just goes. Totally.
Yeah.
Wow.
Usually it's coming from a hurt in somebody's life, and they say that cynicism isn't a result of not caring. It's often a result of caring too much.
Okay. Yeah, for sure.
And you look at the glass and you care so much, and then the glass breaks, and
right.
So, but as we deal with the hurt, for me, I do think there's some truth that a lot of our cynicism is wounds and hurts that are kind of bleeding out in our heart and life. But if we'll go back and deal with some of those wounds and hurts honestly, it can help us acknowledge where some of that cynicism is really coming from. Is that cynicism really about whatever, the church, the style of music, or is it really more about your mentor who said something to you 5 years ago and that's what really hurt you? Or you wanted to be a part of this thing and you weren't really included in it,
right? And
then you got cynical and angry because you didn't get opportunities.
For sure.
Get to the bottom of it. It can help you, right?
Yeah.
Does anybody want to be cynical? Maybe they do. Maybe they wake up and they're like, man, I really want to be cynical.
they might.
I've always been like, I want to figure out how to not be that, even though I feel that pull.
Exactly. And you've said too, because as people, we can tend to focus on the negative.
Yes.
And so the people who have hurt you really is a much smaller number than the people that have been for you throughout the entire time. Like what was it you said? You probably dwindled it down to maybe 5 people or something like that.
Yeah, I was working with a counselor who spent the last 30 years counseling pastors and church leaders, and he said that he sent me on this process. He said, I want you to write down the individual names of all the people that have really hurt you in ministry, not just kind of offended you, but really hurt you. And I remember thinking it's going to be a really long list, but I worked on it all week, and I came back, and it was around 10 people. And one of the things that he said to me that was like a light bulb went off, he just smiled. He goes, Jud, it's always 10 people. or 12 or 5. Wow. We think it's hundreds until you
right.
really have to write their names down. And then you realize what's happened is you've been hurt, half dozen times, a dozen times, significantly.
Yeah.
But then you've projected that onto everybody else, and you've started to get paranoid, or you've started to look over your shoulder, or you started to think you can't trust people. You can't.
True.
Well, you're forgetting the 500 people over the years that were trustworthy. That you could trust, that were great to you, that watched your back, that
encouraged
when you were vulnerable, didn't kick you when you were down, right?
Yeah.
No, you just remember that one person, and then you still look around thinking that could happen again.
Exactly. And now you're a huge champion of others. A huge champion of others, especially coming from your past and stuff. But you've written a book recently called Uncaged, Released to Live in the Freedom of God's Promise. Man, what's this book all about, dude?
So this came out of my own sort of season, my own run-in with burnout a few years ago, and just in my own devotional life, as I was kind of putting my life back together and refinding my way spiritually, I started to think about the promises of God. What can we really expect from God? Really all we can expect from God is whatever He's promised.
Right.
Nothing more and nothing less, right?
For sure.
We can hold Him to His promises, but outside of that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, but when you think about what are the promises of God, outside of forgiveness, eternal life, can be heaven.
Yeah.
It's sort of like and other stuff. And that one pastor said there's 100 of them. There's one for every day of the year. And then it's right. You start thinking about this was just my own personal journey.
Right. Yeah.
And what I felt like just devotionally, personally, I needed coming out of that season of loss and burnout, and I was pretty messed up emotionally. I was like, I just need God. I just need God and His Word and His presence. And so I spent a year researching for my own life. I wasn't ever planning on writing a book about it, the promises of God. And and when I first outlined this project, I was just putting some notes together because I thought, I want to capture the top 8 promises of God in my life.
Yeah.
And these are the promises that I want my kids to be impacted by and to hang on to.
Okay.
And then it just sort of grew out of that. Because part of my burnout, I'd written about a dozen books over a series of years, right? Kind of like a machine.
Yeah.
And when I hit the wall, part of my burnout was I'm not going to write again for a while.
Wow.
I got to step away. I'm tired, right? I'm kind of worn out.
Yep.
So I didn't start this I'm going to write another book. Because writing for me and book tours and all the stuff that came with it had some negative associations that got me into that situation to begin with, So I'm like, I gotta be healthy. But anyway, I reluctantly grew into this book.
Phenomenal. We'll link this in the description below. Get this book for sure. It's not just for leaders. It's for everyone.
It's really for everybody.
It's for everybody.
Yeah, it's really for everybody. And the big idea of the book is just how there's a guy named Gary Richmond who worked at an LA zoo, and at one point he walked in and there were a bunch of red-tailed hawks that were in this cage, and they were part of a defunct poaching case.
Oh wow!
So he asked some people about them, and they basically said these hawks are probably going to be in these cages the rest of their lives. They're never going to be free.
Yeah.
Because it's just all tied up in the legal world. So he's kind of a rebel, and so he opened the door to the warehouse and went back and unlocked the cage and opened the cage and then left. Because he's like, I'm setting free.
Wow.
And he comes back an hour later or something. He walks in and all the hawks are still in the cage. He's like, what the heck, man? The door is open, right? So he goes over and he charges them, come on. And he gets them to fly out of the cage, and they fly about 10 to 15 feet out of the cage. And then they all turn around and they look longingly back at the cage. And he said after another 15 minutes, he just finally gave up, and he herded them all back into the cage and shut the door. And when I read that, it became a metaphor for this book. So often we settle for the caged life, the cage of our past, the cage of our circumstances, the cage of our own condition, as opposed to realizing that because of what Jesus has done for us, the door to the cage is open. You are free. All you have to do is fly into your purpose, into what God's given you. But instead, we trade predictability for purpose. We trade the boredom of the cage for bravery. We trade what we know for what God's Word has already promised us that we can hang on to and live in. And that's really what this book is all about. How do you step into the freedom of what God has promised us and live in it?
Get this book. So good. Jud, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Think International, Sticky Teams. See you later.